I'm just going to take you a little brief over the journey that we've been as a family over the last perhaps 5 years, and kind of talk about some of the things that I feel God has said to me this year about some of the stuff. So I know some of you might have heard some of this testimony before, so I'm sorry if it's like a bit of a repeat, but after praying about it lots, God kept on bringing me back to it, and I thought, well, maybe God's trying to tell me something. So I'm going to take you right back. I'm going to give this quote to start off with, and it says this: "Those who leave everything in God's hands will eventually see God's hand in everything." And this is so true. Like, it is so true. When you can start to see God's perspective on stuff and see God's hands, then you see God in everything. And that's not easy. Like, it's not always see God through everything, isn't it? Through circumstances. But I want to take you back to 2012 on December the 7th. My beautiful little boy, who's here tonight, Reuben, was born. He was a lovely weight of 7.5, and he was early, so I'm glad he wasn't late, because he'd been a very big baby. A beautiful, healthy boy. We were really pleased. It kind of completed our family. We're now a unit of 4, and everything was just like, yeah, that's it. Completed it. And we brought him home, and we were just, like you do with every baby you bring home, you're not really sure what to do with it. Even when you've had one, you bring it back, put it in the middle of the room, and go, right, I've got 2 now, what do I do? So we lived in a 2-bedroom house at the time, and we knew at some point there would become a point where we needed to move house. From a 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom, we got a boy and a girl, so they would need their own rooms at some point. So we were kind of in the midst of kind of thinking about that. And Reuben, as he got older, he started to get a lot of chest infections, and I think he had his first chest infection within like the first few weeks of he was born, but it just seemed to be a continuous thing. Like, he would probably get one like every two or 3 months, and it was quite hard going. Having a newborn anyway is quite tiring, but having a newborn that wasn't very well all the time was even more difficult. We had a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of crying, a lot of antibiotics and things like that. And kind of, we went through a year of Reuben getting these chest infections, and then it was really weird because, like, the next year with Reuben, we started to have a year of tonsillitis. It was like chest infection, tonsillitis, and when he was about 1.5, he was actually under 2 consultants at the time. One for like chesty type things, and the other one was a consultant for his tonsils out. He was actually too young at the time. They said we can't take them we can't take him out. He's too young. There's a lot of risks that come with that. So we kind of was having to try and deal with this at home, and they said to us, and you have to have it so many times before they consider taking your tonsils out. And Reuben would have antibiotics. Within 3 or 4 days, he would get it again. And it was like this, I don't know how many times, probably, I think it was about 6-7 times he had it in 1 year. So bless him, he spent most of his time being ill. So we were going through all this with Reuben, and I was a little bit like, God, what is going on? What is going on? My little boy is going through so much in the first 2 years of life. We'd got Lacey, who was taking everything in a stride, because a lot of our attention was on Reuben because he needed it at that point. And amongst all this, we were going through a circumstance which was happening around us where we lived. It was nothing we were involved in, but it had an effect on us as a family, and it also had an effect on, we decided to sell a house, and it also had an effect on our house sale. So we put our house on the market, and it just wouldn't sell. We were trying to deal with him being ill and trying to move house, and the house on the market for about a year. We'd had probably about 15 to 20 viewings, and like nobody wanted to buy our house. And it was kind of getting a little bit like, what's going on? What is going on? Because everything seems to be against us as a family at the moment. And to be quite honest with you, I was really mad at God. I was really mad at him, because I was like, this is not how it's meant to be. You know, why, God, is this happening? And me personally, I started to get anxiety. And then I don't know if any of you have ever experienced having anxiety, but it is horrible. It takes over your life. And I started to get anxiety about Reuben, about what was happening, about the house sale and stuff like that. And I started to kind of not lose control, but kind of with anxiety, for those that perhaps have seen it or experienced it, I was shaking, I was not eating, I couldn't process my thoughts very well. It kind of makes you feel dizzy all the time. And I can remember one time that my anxiety got so bad that I had to ring somebody to say, I need you to come round because I'm scared that I'm going to pass out and the kids are here by themselves. And so we've got all this whirlwind of stuff going on. We've got Reuben, we've got the house, and then on top of that, we had my anxiety that we were trying to deal with. And that was hard. That was really hard. And even now, like, we're a couple of years on, and it's only taken me the last probably 2 years where I've been able to talk about my anxiety, because it was a really dark time in my life, really dark time. And but I'm out the other end, and I'll talk a bit about that a bit later on. But I tried to be positive and be like, right, 2014, this is our year. We'd had 2 years of absolute rubbish, and I was like, this is our year. We're going to do it. But Reuben's health kept on going downhill, and that point in time as well, I was unsure about my job. My job was changing. A lot of stuff was happening in my job at the time, and I really wasn't sure what was going to happen with that. And so my relationship with God started to get a little bit rocky, and I kind of lost hope. I lost hope that God was going to do something. I was like, I can't see it. I can't see how we're going to get out of it. And it kind of started to turn into fear. What if this is it? What if this is it? That Reuben's going to keep getting ill, we're going to be stuck in this house, and I'm going to live with this anxiety for the rest of my life. And that sounds, to you, it perhaps sounds like a bit extreme, but when you're going through it, that is what it was like. It was hard. So yeah, and I can remember one day, Mike was asleep, the kids were asleep, and I remember going down to my front room on my knees, crying out to God, God, you've got to do something. You have got to do something, because I don't know how much longer I can keep, I'm losing control. I was losing control of my life, and kind of, me and Mike were coming to the point where we were going to have to make some big decisions, and we were deciding whether we should just move out the house anyway without selling it, because my health was more important than that house. And then it comes with the whole financial worry and all that kind of thing. And then we had a glimmer of hope, because Reuben had another lot of tonsillitis, and they said, we're taking him out. We're taking him out. And Reuben, he just turned 2, and they took his tonsils out. And I can tell you now, I mean, Sally will be able to tell you, she see him at toddlers all the time, he's a completely different boy, isn't he, like, to what he was like then. It was like having his tonsils out, and like, a few months, it was like, I got a different child, because these tonsils had literally caused all the hassle, basically. And so that kind of took the pressure off a little bit. And although when he was in hospital having his tonsils out, he did get an infection, and he did end up staying longer in hospital, it was a real answer to prayer that he could have his tonsils out, because he was very young to have his tonsils out. It was interesting, because when I was in hospital, Reuben, as sad as this sounded like, it actually was a relief not to be at home and to be in hospital. And that's to think, oh, I'm glad I'm in hospital with my son, so I don't have to go home to that circumstance. It was horrible, but kind of nice in the same way. And not that Reuben was ill, that wasn't the nice bit, but just not having to think about what was going off there. And Reuben got through it, and it kind of got better. And so Reuben got out of hospital, and still at this point I was angry at God, but felt God challenged me to pray for the people around me. And that was difficult. I was like, I don't want to pray for the people around me. I don't want to pray for other people. I want you to answer my prayer. I want you to do it, God. I don't want to sit, but I really felt God do it. And as hard as it was, I really prayed for the people around me that God would love them and that they would find Jesus and that I could be Jesus to them. And as hard as that was, I know I wanted that, and if I wasn't in that circle, that's what I want for people. But it was just through that time, it was quite difficult. And so as you can see, it was quite a rocky few years for us as a family. And I got to 2015, I was like, right, this is the year. 2014, I said, this is the year. And in 2015, I'm like, this is the year. 2015 has got to be our year. So obviously Reuben had his operation, and then we had a house viewing. And I'm pleased to say somebody made an offer on the house. And yes, we straight away were like, yes, you can have it. We pretty much didn't make anything of it. In fact, we lost quite a bit in the house, but that wasn't important to us. What was important was our family and what was best for them. So God made a way. I believe that God had a hand in that, even though I didn't see it. And this person brought a house, and within like a week we were moved out of the house. And I cannot tell you the anxiety that lifted from me when I left that house was amazing. My anxiety hadn't gone, but the burden that was there at that time had gone. And and at that time as well, like amongst all this was going on, I handed my notice into the job I was a youth worker for 10 years, and it was just right to leave. And God, literally, I left one job, I handed my notice in one job, not knowing what I was going to do because I needed to work. And like a few days later, I had I'd been applying for Tesco's and Asda's because I wanted a job just to not think about anything. And like literally, handed my notice on the Monday, Friday, got offered a job at Tesco. And you couldn't have timed it. And it's got to have been God. Like, there's no doubt about it. And like, there was no period of time where we didn't have a pay packet. It was like one was there, and then the next was there, and it was amazing. And it kind of gave us time as a family to breathe a little bit. We moved in with Mike's brother for a bit because at that time we hadn't found a house that we wanted to move in, and we moved in with them for a little bit, and we just had time to sit and breathe for just a while, and then eventually we found our house that we're in now. And I cannot tell you, I am very house proud. I love my house. But you know what, whenever I'm in it now, even to the point now, I am so thankful because we have got a beautiful house. We've got a massive garden for the children, which I didn't have before. And we've got a really big 3-bedroom house. And I know it's not about material things, but we're so blessed with what we've got. Like even now, I love my gardening as well, but we are so blessed with the house. And even now I walk around and be like, oh God, thank you so much for this house. And that's probably why it's so clean. I want it to be the best it can be for when people come around. Not that it's got any feelings, but so that's kind of was our life for the first three-ish years, and kind of looking back now, you kind of, when you have time to think about what actually you've been through, you can kind of see God's hand in it. Because when you're going through it, and through a circumstance, you can't always see God's hand in it, and you can't always understand why. And I'm not saying that God wanted us to go through that stuff. I don't think he did. But, we didn't face it on our own, and we got through it, and we got through the other end. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about recognising that we go through hard times, but we're not on our own. I recognised that all the promises that God said had come true, that he didn't leave us and that he didn't forsake us, and he works out things for there's that verse in Romans, isn't it, that it says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love him. And I know that God was in that, and kind of it gave me time to reflect on it. And kind of I've been looking, and when I was planning this, I was looking back and kind of looking then what we went through, and then looking at kind of our journey now. And we've had some other rocky times. I know some of you prayed for Mike last summer. He turned ill really quickly. part of me feels a bit bad now because he had a bad knee, and I just told him to get in the bath and deal with it. Which now, in hindsight, it was very serious what he had. He had sepsis, he was in hospital, he had to have surgery, it all happened very quickly. He was in hospital for 2 weeks, and, you know, and it was another trial that we went through. But this time round, it kind of seemed a bit easier because of what I'd been through before, kind of knowing some of the God of the promises and things like that, and reflecting and kind of seeing God's hand in that. You know, we were supported by the church. We had a lot of people praying for us. We had a lot of people visit Mike, and a lot of people looked after our children, and, you know, it was amazing. And so, you know, that's another piece to kind of what God has been doing in our life, kind of bringing us through that as a family. You know, we got through that, and then something totally amazing that happened in my family's life was, and I think you prayed for me here as well, I've got a cousin called Ryan who was 12 years old, and he got hit by a car, went through the window screen, and the consultant said that he wouldn't live. They told his mum to prepare for the worst because he wouldn't live. And I wasn't aware that my cousin had got any faith, like his mum, and I said to her, the church are praying for him. We're praying for him, and she was so thankful. And I went to a party this January, my auntie's 50th, and Ryan was there, and it was like seeing, he's a miracle, like he is a walking miracle. And it was really weird because when I saw him, I could feel myself welling up. I was so amazed about what God had done in his life. And his mum approached me afterwards and she said, "Do you know what, Emily, I think I found God." And like, honestly, I came away from that and I was so blown away about what God had done in their lives. And, you know, we've heard today, haven't we, about baby Harry, and God has done a miracle in his life. He's a miracle baby. You know, he has been through so much. And you're probably thinking, why is she telling me all this? But what I really wanted to say today was that kind of at the beginning of the year, we were at church in Infusion, and somebody asked the question, you know, what are you believing that God is going to do in your lives? And I was chatting to my friend at the time, and I said, I'm not believing in anything because nothing ever works out for me. And when I look back, I've been thinking about this over the last few months, and I was thinking, why is it I think that? Because I know what God has done in my life, and I know what I've been through, and I know the promises that he's given me. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, do you know what it is? My perspective of God has changed. Because of my circumstances, I've allowed my perspective of God to change. Because he didn't necessarily answer my prayer straight away, or there's times where I've cried out for him, I kind of put God in a little box and thought, well, he can't do that then, because he didn't do that straight away, or, oh, he didn't do that. And I think I've got to open my perspective to remember who God is, and what my identity is in his, and what he can do. He's a healing God. He can do lots of it, and I need to start believing that God is going to do more in my life. I want God to do more in my life, and I think, you know, when we go through circumstances, we can lose sight of who God is, but we don't see things through God's perspective, but we see it through our perspective and how what the world says we should do, and we lose that, what God is doing. And God has done some awesome stuff in our family, and he will, and I'm believing now that he will. He's going to do more and more and more. But I just need to open my eyes and remind myself who God is. And, you know, I don't know if any of you are going through circumstances, but my advice to you would be, just remember who God is. And although it's difficult, try and look through a God perspective, because God has got the bigger picture. And, you know, we're going to go through hard times in life. You know, but we will get through it, and we will get through it with God. And when I said the quote at the beginning about those who leave everything in God's hands will eventually see God's hands in everything. And I believe that. I believe that if we start seeing things through a God perspective, we'll see where God is working, and it won't always be the way we expect it to or the way we want it to be. But God is a big God. And God understands absolutely everything that we go through. And kind of that is where I am. Honestly, that is where I am in my life in a minute. I need to pray and ask God to continue to show me a God perspective and to believing God's going to do something in my life. He wants to use me because I'm very good at, I'm really passionate about believing that God will do something in somebody else's life. And, I really go for it and pray for people. And I'll be like, with Harry and my children, my close friends, everybody, I'm really passionate. But when it comes to me, I tend to back off a little bit and think, God ain't going to do that for me. But I need to believe that God will do that for me. He'll do it the same for me as he will everybody else. But I've just got to believe and have a God perspective on life. And that's not easy. I'm not coming up here and saying it's easy to do that. But reading your Bible, praying, encouraging one another. And I love the fact that you guys pray for one another. That you have that time of prayer at the beginning where you pray for each other. That's building each other up, encouraging people. And that's amazing. So, just continue praying for one another and kind of, that's me. So I'm going to pray for us and then we can go and enjoy some coffee and cake. Because I hear there's lots of cake here. So, God, I just want to thank you that you're a great God. And I want to thank you that through our circumstances, God, that you never leave us, God. That you work things out for us, God. That you love us. And God, I just really pray that you'll help us to see your perspective on things, God. That when things are rough, and when things are hard, that we can see what you're doing, God. That we can see you in the situation, Jesus. And I pray that we have a God perspective on life, God. And I just want to thank you for each and every person here, God. I want to thank you that you're God, that you know our every single need. God, when we were going through that hard time as a family, God, you knew what our needs was. You put people around us to support us. You put people around to pray for us, God. And you know every single person's need here. And I believe that you will meet that need. And so, God, I just really pray that your Holy Spirit will fill each one of us, God. That we go out of here knowing that you are never going to leave us, forsake us. Knowing that you're going to love us, God. Knowing that you care about each one of us and our lives, God, and what we're going through, no matter how big or small. So, God, I just really, just really pray this week as we go from here that we'll feel a real sense of you. In Jesus' name, amen.